is the Revisionary Podcast with your host, Juan Carlos. The Revisionary Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to the Revisionary Podcast, a podcast where I bring on guests who have an opportunity to tell us real, non-fiction stories that happen to them in their lives, and after that, give them an opportunity to retell us the same exact story and change any of the facts that they want. After they've done that, then we take time out to have conversations and discuss how the changes that they would have made would have affected them today, or if the changes would have even mattered in their story. If you think that that's a cool concept, please go ahead and like us and subscribe and follow us along to make sure that you're up to date with all of our new episodes. Today, our guest is Neruda Williams. Neruda's an interesting guy. So, I met Neruda a few years ago in Harlem, where he's from, and where actually I was born. So, I'm not from Harlem. I was born in Harlem. It's weird. I'm from the Bronx. We don't need to get into that. But anywho, I met Neruda because I was running a show, co-running a show up at the Shrine in Harlem. And Neruda approached my partner at the time about including us or our location in the Harlem Comedy Festival. If you haven't heard of the Harlem Comedy Festival, it's actually a really cool thing. It's actually Neruda's brainchild. And what he does is he tried to revitalize the Harlem art scene by putting on a comedy festival for mostly and specifically black comedians and giving them an opportunity to perform in front of audiences that look like them, and giving audiences an opportunity to hear specifically from comedians that share some of their life experiences and also look like them. It's a really cool concept, and I commend Neruda for going ahead and stepping up and taking this opportunity and creating spaces for people to perform. So, with that being said, why don't we go ahead and see if we can get Neruda on the line? Hey, Neruda, how are you?
Hey, what's up, Juan? How's it going?
It's going well. Thank you so much for spending time and doing this with us today.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're really excited to have you on the Revisionary Podcast. So how have things been with you? Where have you been? Have you been doing comedy lately?
I haven't, because it's been a pandemic.
Right.
And,
Trying to be safe. I get it.
Trying to be safe. And I'm just not really, I'll tell you something. Way before this pandemic, years ago, there was a guy named Stefan Mark who used to do open mics with me. He would always try to push the boundaries of what stand-up was, right? So sometimes he would do sets where, like, he didn't say anything, right? He was just silent for his whole 5 minutes. Or,
did that work?
Or he would...
Got you.
Look, I don't know, man. I don't yuck anybody's yum. Right. Whatever your process is, that's your process.
Yeah.
The 76ers. Uh-huh. So I was like, I was a young comic, and I was inspired by a lot of that. And he would try to do random shows in like Washington Square Park, or we did one over by Lincoln Center, where that fountain is or whatever. And he would bring out a little speaker thing, and we would try to do shows in the middle, but nobody cared. People are walking past, but babies crying. Yeah. You know what I mean? And then he did one on a train, and and at first it was okay, but I was like, no, I like being in a room with paying customers who came to see jokes. It's not personally me, but they came to hear jokes. So for me, going out and doing a show in a parking lot or doing a show in Central Park, like I saw Giancarlo posted that his show was happening, and then someone was also running an open mic like across the park, like right next to him. And it's like, I'm not about it.
It's not for you.
I mean? Like, it's not for me. And I'm sure that because of the circumstances, audiences are there for that. And it's probably not as bad as I feel like it is, but that's just not how I like to do stand-up. So, and then of course we talked about the Zoom shows, and I can't really get busy with that either. Like I kind of feel like, well, we might as well just do this. It might as well just be an interview, and you ask me stuff, and I'll say what comes to mind. Hopefully someone laughs, But me writing down jokes and then trying to deliver a joke across this feels too awkward for me. So yeah, I haven't been doing that much comedy.
You know what it is for me with the Zoom shows? I think like my biggest pet peeve is that I'm like when I'm on stage, right? I kind of like I vibe to the crowd, right? And I feel like I just don't get that vibe when I'm on a Zoom show. Like part of it is like, I'm on a stage, I'm standing up. I've never sat down. I don't use a stool or any of that. But when I'm in a Zoom show, I can't help but to sit in a chair, or I'm walking around with a phone to my face, and it's not for me.
It's weird. I mean, I have a setup now where I could technically connect a mic and like stand up and actually do a set, but it feels like a sketch. It feels like I'm acting like a stand-up comic and not doing stand-up comedy. So yeah, I can't really get down with it. But and then yeah, also I don't usually sit down. I'm not Patrice O'Neal. I'm not fucking like I'm not over here waxing poetic. I usually do like dick jokes and and just real silly shit. So I think it's more appropriate that I'm in a live audience and I can smell the sweat and fear on them.
Sometimes it doesn't always smell good. I don't talk about that part of stand-up, but
no, I will say this though. I should probably be more reticent and ready to do Zoom shows because it's probably safer than doing a club show even before the pandemic. I'm probably less likely to catch herpes or get shot by the police on the way to the show. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess that's the perfect transition since we're already here.
Right. Okay.
Why don't we go ahead and get into this? So why don't you tell us your story and go ahead and paint a picture for our audience. Make them feel like they were there with you and just walk them through and show them how you saw things from your point of view.
Okay. It was April 24th, my birthday, about 2 years ago. And I had a good night. I was at the Grizzly Pear earlier that night doing some shows, doing a couple spots. I was kind of tipsy, but I wasn't like super drunk,
Right.
And I like to get like fucked up, but I was planning on coming back and hanging out with my girl and getting drunk with her. Mm-hmm. So I was like, a little tipsy, and I get on the train at West 4th. I think it was like the F train. I'm just chilling. And, there's always some crazy shit on that line, on that A, C, E, F line. There's always like, I remember one time there was like mariachi dancers, a homeless person, a break dancers, the drummers. It was like a full concert had happened in 3 stops. And this night was like the same, So I wasn't really paying too much attention to everything going on. And then some like homeless dude gets on and he's just like harassing people and like yelling. And so I just put my headphones in, boom, boom. And I'm like, I'm just gonna listen to music and ignore this crazy shit. And then for some reason, he decides to come at me. And I'm like, not in the mood, I'm like, dude, get from around me, get away from me, man. He didn't like that. He wanted to engage. And so he snatches the headphones out of my ears.
Oh,
and so yeah. And I'm like, yo, now you've broken, the seal here. So I stand up like, about to bark on this dude. And as I'm standing up, you can hear the ding dong of the doors,
right,
like about to close. And he uses that to snatch the phone out of my hand and then tries to run through the door. So I'm like, oh. And so then I realized, oh, this dude is like, you know what I mean? Like, this is something that he does, right? He gets people riled up and then he like takes your phone and runs, right? And so I'm like, oh, so I chase after him.
Right.
I catch his arm as the doors are like closing. And when something is blocking the doors, they automatically reopen.
Right.
So finally the doors open and I catch him and now we're on the subway platform at like Hoyt Skimmerhorn. And I was like, I'm like, dude, just give me my phone, man. There's people on the platform and, and he's like trying to run around this bench. You know how those benches are there in the middle and he's like running around the bench, like playing like this game. And I'm like, dude, stop messing with me, man. So I'm like chasing them around like musical chairs, and finally I grab him, right? And we're like tussling and wrestling and we fall back onto the steps and my arm is like grabbing on his leg as he's trying to like get away. And he uses his other leg to snap my arm. I don't know if you can see where the incision is when they I got like a metal thing in there.
So he stomped down on the inside part of your elbow?
Yeah, so my arm is across the steps, right? The steps like this, and he snaps through it with his other foot like that.
Oh.
And it it pops. And my bone is like hanging out, and my arm is like dangling like this.
Yeah. Happy birthday to you.
Right. And I'm like, I'm screaming. People are screaming because they're like, what is going on?
Right.
There's blood, and, it just was gross. So he runs off like into the subway tunnels. Like he ran into where the train goes. He ran in there and dipped. And I wasn't going to chase him in there. I'm not 16 anymore. You know what I mean? Like, if I was, also my arm was broken. So I was done anyway. Like, fight over. Like, if it's MMA, they're calling this, right? But when I was a kid, you would run through the tunnels. You would run across the tracks to get to the other side if you got on the wrong side of the train and was going the wrong direction or whatever. But, like, my arm is broken. What?
I grew up in the Bronx, and I never did that once.
You never did that?
Nah, that's some real Harlem stuff. I ain't gonna hold you.
Oh, well, yeah, I guess. Or maybe it's just my crazy butt. But, I'm like, my phone is gone. My arm is broken. It's my birthday.
Right.
It's like 1, 2 a.m. I'm just like, oh, my God, this is the worst. So now I'm like, I got to go to the hospital. And I walk up the steps, and when I walk up the steps, I see 2 cops like right there, right at the turnstile. And I'm like, y'all ain't here, the screaming, the fighting. Like, what good are you?
Right.
So they asked me, like, they can see my arm is like looking crazy. Mm-hmm. And so they asked me, like, what happened to you? What were you doing? And I was like, I just got into a fight with this homeless guy, and he robbed me for my phone, and I just need an ambulance to go to the hospital. And they're like still like questioning me, and I'm like, you know what, forget it, because I'm getting the vibe that they think that I have done something wrong,
right?
As especially in YPD, but I think most cops do. The first instinct isn't to protect. The first instinct is to investigate, right? Mm-hmm. I was like, yo, I'm good, forget it, I'm just gonna go, because it was Hoyt Skinner, and there's like a Brooklyn College Hospital, something like right there. And so I was going to walk, with my broken arm, the few blocks to the hospital.
Right.
Finally, they're like, okay. And they call in for backup and for an ambulance. And so I'm thinking at first, like, oh, you calling for backup so you guys can go down there and search for this guy, maybe. Mm-hmm. No, they called for backup for me. And they put handcuffs on my unbroken arm, on my good arm, and they cuffed me to the stretcher in the ambulance. And I'm like, why am I being cuffed? Why am I under arrest? They're like, well, we don't know what happened. Right now, we think that, more is going on than you're telling us, this and the third. And I'm like, I don't have anything to do. I don't know what you're talking about. My arm is broken. Anyway, they take me to the hospital. I go into surgery. They put a rod and a bunch of pins in there. And I'm still handcuffed, by the way, on the other arm. There's a cop in surgery with me in, like, full surgery garb. Like, he's going to do surgery. He's just there to somehow protect from my broken arm having self. I don't know doing what exactly. Right. And then when I come out of surgery, I'm in the hospital room, still handcuffed, and 2 like detectives come in, and they start questioning me about a guy who was on the same train had gotten his leg cut. Apparently, he's in the hospital and he's in urgent care because it cut his femoral artery. And so I'm like, I don't know anything about that. I was robbed. They continued to question me. Finally, I get the cast put on, and they decided that they were going to take me down to central bookings. So now I have to go to jail, basically.
On your birthday, after getting robbed.
On my birthday, after getting robbed, and I'm talking to the detectives, right. And I'm like, there's got to be cameras there's cameras everywhere, right, all over the city. So there's got to be cameras on the subway platform that could have caught what happened. And they're like, oh, the cameras don't work, and the cameras that do work weren't positioned in that area. And I'm like, just the whole time in my head, I'm just thinking, this doesn't make any sense. Like, right. Y'all aren't, like, you know what I mean? Like, even about the other dude, like, I mean, I can't front. I didn't really care about that man at this point. You know right. what I mean? Like, he wasn't the first person on my mind. But, later I think about, like, well, even for that other guy, like, where is the safety for preventing this type of stuff from happening instead of being reactionary, right? Which is, to me, the biggest issue with police performance is that they're always reactionary, right? Like they don't really prevent crime. They don't really protect as much as they kind of take revenge. You know what I mean? For something happening.
I mean, sometimes I do think they prevent, just maybe not in the way we love. Like when they're standing on the highway, right, to catch people speeding, that could be a form of prevention. It's just not one that I personally like. But
right. I mean, yeah. I mean, I think having a uniformed officer on a corner or in a subway, but like on the platform where things are going down, are preventative to an extent, right? Because I think you're less likely to do something if you know the cop is right there, right? As far as those speed traps, though, number one, I hate those guys.
I'm not a fan either.
And number two, everybody has the GPS now where we know, speed trap ahead. You still get caught. you gotta slow down about 5-10 real quick. As soon as she says that, you gotta be like, and then speed up. But yeah, so I'm just thinking like, okay, so the cameras don't work.
Right.
These cops were up there harassing some kid about hopping the train, just trying to get home. And I'm sitting here with a broken arm and this other guy is in the hospital bleeding out, And so they take me down to jail and I had to spend basically 24, maybe like a day and a half technically in jail. No one can get in touch with me. My girl can't get in touch with me. My family can't get in touch with me.
Because she was waiting for you, right? What did she think?
Right. She thought I got like murdered or kidnapped or something. She was like, she didn't know what happened. And also she knows I'm a wild dude. So she's like, yo, he could have just, you know what I mean, gotten into something and you know what I mean? Like anything could have happened to me. So she was really scared. I get a public defender that actually happened to be like really good. I can't remember this guy's name. He actually like, right as my case was, he held me down and he like got my phone for me from evidence or whatever. And like, contacted my girl, because a bunch of people by the next day, people like was supposed to do somebody's show. So people were like hitting me on Facebook, like, yo, where are you? Blah, blah, blah. So yeah, like, he contacted people for me and eventually got in touch with my dad and my mom and my girl. And yeah, and then got me out. They my dad put up bail and they got me out. And I had to then go to court for like, I don't know, a month and a half, 2 months. Just trying to defend myself against, because they charged me with assault with a deadly weapon. Turns out the guy who robbed me, as we were fighting to get out of the train doors, the guy who got cut was walking in through the train doors, and the guy who robbed me had pulled a box cutter to cut me. But by accident, because I had his arm, he cut this other dude's leg and then dropped the box cutter. So we're fighting. This kid is bleeding out on the train as we're fighting, and he takes my phone. This kid is at the next stop, bleeding out on the train. His friends take him to the hospital, and then they told their story. He's a white dude, so they didn't harass him. They just believed him. Right. And then they were saying that I was the dude. They had convinced him too. The trained detectives that talked to me had convinced him that maybe I was the guy who had stabbed them. And so
they didn't give you the benefit of the doubt. They just try to like initially incriminate you. Gotcha. Close the case. That's wild.
Right. And so it's 1, 2 in the morning when this happened. So everybody, I'm sure, on that train is a little sloppy, is a little twisted or whatever. And so dude doesn't know which black dude cut him. Like, you know what I mean? Dude is just like, I got cut and for no reason. And so he's like, whoever you got in custody, that's the dude. You know what I mean?
Right.
As I think most people probably would. Because I mean, especially if you're white, you probably trust the word of the police. Like the police, I mean, you know, they're trying to help you. And they're like, well, we got this guy in custody. You know what I mean? He's probably the guy who cut you, right? And you're like, yeah, whatever. Like, get somebody. And so I don't really blame dude. Like, I'm not mad at him because I know how police twist things. You know what I mean? Yeah. So for like a month and a half, 2 months, I had to go to court to defend myself from an assault with a deadly weapon charge. And finally, it got thrown out. The lawyer, this was like his last case before he went to the private sector. That's how good he was. He was like, yo, he was telling me the whole time. He's like, yo, man, you know, another month or so, you're going to have a new lawyer because I'm about to get this guap. And I was like, I was like, yo, just don't leave me hanging yet. I need your expertise, because a lot of these public defenders be sloppy, man. They do the least amount of work, And so I was real lucky to get this guy who knew his stuff really well. And so, yeah, he got the charges thrown out eventually. And then I had to rehab for, I don't know, must have been like 4 or 5 months of rehab on my arm here. Were you going to ask something?
No. I was going to ask you if it was your arm, and how long did it take you to get like full functionality back?
Like 6 months, and then even after that, during the rehab, I was like, I did like maybe a few shows, but I was real hesitant to. I did a few shows with the cast on, but I was still real hesitant.
One of those. Now that I'm thinking back, I think when I first met you, you had the cast on.
Oh wow! Yeah.
I never knew why.
So that was and I wasn't talking about it too much. I think I did like a joke or a bit about it once or twice just to explain the cast, but I didn't really tell too many people about the story until just recently, because it was a traumatic experience, man. And I'm not a tough guy or anything, but like, I grew up in Harlem, and like, I grew up slap boxing and shooting five and, the whole 9 yards or whatever. I felt like I could hold my own, you know what I mean? Like I felt like I could protect myself. And then this happened, and then, my arm was not fully working or whatever. I didn't feel safe, you know what I mean? So for a long time during that period, and even after, I was hesitant to go out too much. I was hesitant to do too many shows because I didn't want to be out too late, because I just felt like, if something went down, I don't think I can protect myself. And that really messes with your head, so that was hard. And then when I finally got back to feeling okay, I could do push-ups, I could lift a little bit. I was like, okay, I'm going to get back to stuff. So that was about, the beginning of last year. And then over the course of last year, we hung out, we had done a couple of shows.
Right.
Everything was fine. It cut to then this year, the pandemic happens, and it's like, okay, well, I'm back in the house.
So I have a few questions for you. By any chance, so do you know whatever happened to the homeless guy? So was he convicted?
No, I don't know. I don't think he ever got caught. I never got my phone back.
Wait, I thought you said the lawyer was texting on your phone.
Oh, no. He on my Facebook. That's what I meant. He got in my Facebook and then contacted people. Yeah. Okay. But I never got my actual phone back. No. I never got any real closure to the whole situation.
What about the other guy? Is he okay? Is he walking around?
I think he made it. I mean, again, that wasn't like my friend. Like, right. I don't,
You're like, I hope you make it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure he was okay though, because wasn't being charged with murder. So,
right.
I'm pretty sure he survived. Yeah.
Wow, first off, this is a wild story. Like, I need you to know. Like, I understand that you still need closure, but this needs to be like a screenplay, like kind of like A Night Of or something like that. If you haven't seen it on HBO, check that out. Like, it's just like, and what's crazy about this is that this is something that could happen to anyone in New York. Like, right. it wasn't any particular reason. It was just your night.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, growing up in New York, I think you feel like Teflon. Like, you know what I mean? Like, especially when you go to other places, you know what I mean? Like, maybe not Southside Chicago or Compton, LA, but like, for the most part, if I'm in San Francisco or if I'm in, Milwaukee or something like that, like I'm from New York, like, you know what I mean? Like, I can handle myself. So that's, growing up, that's just in you, right? And then when it's your night though, it's like, oh wait, no, you're just human. You're just a regular dude like everybody else, and you could get it too.
It's funny you say that, because I remember growing up, I grew up in the Bronx, as I said earlier, and I remember as a kid, I would go back to the Dominican Republic. And in my head, for whatever reason, I was like, oh, I'm from New York. I'm from the Bronx. Like, these kids are not going to do anything to me. And I remember getting to some of the stupidest fights that you could get. Like, dumb stuff. Like, I remember one time I'm sitting, like, maybe 50 yards from this kid, and we started throwing rocks at each other as hard as possible. Bro, It was just stupid. Right? Like, it was rocks. It was like the dead of night. It's pitch black. All you hear is ka-cha! It's like the rocks are like smashing and bursting against the walls. Like, it was just wild. But it's that same attitude. It's like, oh, I'm from New York. What's this dude gonna do? Like, I'm not afraid of you. Right. And so, like, I totally get that. I feel like every New Yorker walks around like that, and that's wild.
I think it's a double-edged sword. I think it's a good thing, because I think it instills a lot of like personal confidence in the type of adult you become, which I think is necessary, right? Like I've met people from, sleepy town type of places that come to New York and they're very afraid, and that their whole, the way they move is very like scary. And I think it stops you from having a good time. It stops you from going to the after hours spot, or it stops you from like having that adventure that you might have in a city like New York, because you're like, oh, something could happen to me. But yeah, it can also be a flaw. It can also leave you open to getting into rock fights and other things that you could avoid if you just, you got to have a little bit of both. You got to be cautious yet
adventurous.
Yeah, adventurous. Yeah, tough. Yeah.
It's funny you say that because for me, I feel extremely safe in New York, right? Like, and I think part of it is, it's not even that I'm from New York or anything like that. It's more that I kind of know which neighborhoods to avoid, which streets to avoid. And I think that's a huge difference for me. So like when I'm in a foreign country, like I was in St. Lucia last year. Now, St. Lucia is inherently a safe country. It's not even dangerous, right? But I wouldn't walk down random streets or random alleys because I don't know them the way I know New York.
I totally get that. And yeah, of course, there's places in New York that I'm not, I'm not going crazy. I'm not going to East New York and screaming and yelling. I'm not, I'm not an idiot. But I was like going from West 4th to Hoyt Skimmelhorn, and like anybody who knows New York knows that's like the whitest. Like, you know what I mean?
It's safe. Like, that's what you're saying. It's a safe place. Yeah.
So I'm not going to Brownsville. I was in my head. I was like, oh, nothing is gonna happen, and that's why you can fall asleep going from 59th Street to West 4th Street, or from West 4th to Hoyt Skimmelhorn. You can fall asleep on the train. I've been doing that for years, and after that shit happened, I realized how fucking dumb that is. Like falling asleep on the A train and ending up, at in Coney Island, and just being like, oh, whatever, I guess I just got to get back on the train and take it back, and not having a care in the world. After that happened, I was like, I don't think I can ever sleep on the train again. Like, I don't think I could ever do that.
I mean, I used to fall asleep all the time, and like I'd go up to the Bronx, but I have that New York superpower that like I wake up right before my stop.
right before. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. Yeah.
Like, you didn't grow up in New York if you never developed that skill. It's just like it comes with it.
One of my girlfriends wasn't from New York, and she would see me do that, right? And because I'd be drunk, we'd both be drunk,
right?
And you know what I mean? Like, and she noticed a couple times where I would just do that, like, all right, I stopped this next, and she'd be like, "How would you do that?" It's just the motion in the ocean, babe. Like I just know how to go. I know how to sail the train.
Yeah. That's cool. All right, so this is the fun part of the Revisionary podcast, all right? We've gotten to that point where you get to tell me your whole entire story again, right?
Okay.
But you get to revise it however you please.
I mean, if I was to revise it, it wouldn't have happened. So,
right.
Story over. Like, right, so done. Over. Peace, Carlos. You know what I mean? Like, I'd say, all right, it would still be my birthday and I would still be coming from a show.
Right.
And I'm on the train. Homeless guy gets on the train and I don't put my headphones in. I keep everything in my pocket.
So now, do you sit someplace different? Do you think that had anything to do with it?
Maybe, because I think if I was sitting like right next to the doors, and he started walking over there and he had been wild, I might have, I mean, now revising the story, I would have just gotten off the train. You know what I mean? I just been like, you know what? I'll take the next one, man. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's another thing New Yorkers don't like to do either. Like, if we're on the train, we're on the train. I'm not waiting to see if the next train takes an hour and a half to get to me, and now I'm not getting home till 6 a.m. But in hindsight, I would have just gotten off the train. I'd have kept my stuff in my pocket so he didn't have a chance to snatch it. I would have just gotten off the train, waited for the next one. Yeah.
Let me ask you this. Are you okay? Because again, we essentially come from the same place. Like, I was born in Harlem. I wasn't raised there, but I was born there. You know what I'm saying? So we're from, and Harlem is right there. We're like from the same place. So now, I know that like when I get on the subway, right, I kind of have a plan. Even if it like I'm not actively thinking about it, I have a plan. Like depending on where I'm going, it affects how I pick my seat, what door I stand next to. Like if I have a backpack, where am I sitting? How am I wrapping around my leg? Like these are things that I think about right before I get on the train.
So now, do you have a plan? And like, did you put your plan in motion that night?
You know what? I don't usually have a plan. Like, my older brother used to be that, right? He used to be the type of dude who knew which bus to catch to get to the right train and where to be on the car to get out exactly where your exit is to be closest to your final destination or whatever. And I used to always be like, man, just get on the train. You know what I mean? Like, so I don't really think I had a real plan. Right. And then also it was the end of my night, right? So it's kind of like, in hindsight, it would have been better, like I said, to sit next to the doors. I was sitting, because on those trains, you got those two seats that are out in the middle, and then you got the seats by the door. So the doors are like right there. There's those three seats there, and then there's the two seats,
right?
And then the one seat that's closest to the window, though, I'm tall, so my knees hit that series of seats. So I sit on the out seat on those seats. And it wasn't like a packed train, so there were seats, but I sat on the out one. Yeah, I would have sat next to the door, because if I had sat in, he probably would have sat down on that out one and tried to like corner me or whatever, and we'd have been like fighting, like sitting down here or something like that. Yeah, I would have sat on that seat where you're right next to the doors. Only reason why I don't usually sit there, though, is because someone always comes and stands on the doors. Then you got someone's butt right next to your face.
Yo, that's a whole fact. That's so true.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's why I don't usually sit there. I'm always like, okay, and I don't want to take a middle seat because I don't want to be crushed. So I usually take that outer seat that's going vertically or whatever, or horizontally, maybe that's what it is. But yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Let's break this down. Let me ask you. I'm going to pick your story apart a little bit, if that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you're fighting, right? You're outside the train. He doesn't break your arm.
Well, yeah, I would change that too.
What happens? Walk me through that. He doesn't break your arm. What would happen?
If he doesn't do that snap, then I would have got him, pulled him down, right, yanked him by his feet. I've thought about this part, right? I thought about this part. You know how you always like you always can plan a fight after you've had it. Like,
that's the point.
I would, So yeah, no, I would have yanked his feet so that he falls, and then I would have gotten on top of him and then just choked him out.
Okay.
And then took my stuff, and then what's funny? If that would have happened though,
right?
Then I probably would have gotten arrested on sight, because then I would have attacked him. He'd have been like, the cops would have been like, "Oh, did you just choke this dude out?" And I'd have to explain.
Right.
So no matter what, I end up in Brooklyn Central bookings anyway. But no matter how you advise this, but yeah, I would have just choked him out, not to kill him, of course, but just so that he passes out. Take my stuff back, and then I would have gotten out of there. Yeah, I would have. Okay. I dipped.
So let's take this a step further, right? Let's say your arm didn't break. You went to the cops because he got away. They believe you.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, walk me through that. What would you have wanted to happen? Like, realistically, what do you think they could have done? How do you think they could have been more helpful for you?
Well, before I go into realistically, I will say, in my dreams, I would want them to be super cops and run down into the tunnels and chase them, and grab them and get them. Not hurt them. Don't hurt them. Because even though we got into our thing, I don't want nobody hurt, especially not by the police, but I don't want nobody hurt.
Right.
But catch them and get my phone back and be like, here's your phone, Mr. Williams. And you have a great evening. And, ask me, do I want to file charges? I wouldn't have. I would have been like, nah. I don't want to file charges because I'm a cool dude, but treat me like I see on the cop shows, like I see on NYPD Blue and Law and Order. Yeah, but in reality, they weren't going to do that.
Right.
In reality, real cops don't do stuff like that, and I don't think there's much they could have done. I think in reality, had I not had a broken arm and I had just had my phone taken, they probably would have taken my statement. Told me that they'll contact me if anything, if any details come up. I would hope, there's that iPhone thing where you're supposed to be able to trace your phone. But that never works because your phone is always dead by the time you can get to that thing. Or they've already reset it and all types of stuff. I would hope that they would do that maybe, question, take my statement, take my information to contact me if they do get a hold of the phone. And I would hope that they would take the time to trace the phone, find out where its last location is, and investigate that. I don't know police stuff, man. I don't.
They just start typing wildly into a computer.
Yeah, just yeah. I mean, do that. Do that. Don't harass me. But yeah.
So here's another question: did you I know you saw this? You were told the story after the fact, but did you ever actually see the guy when he walked in, or what the guy who got stabbed?
What's funny? No, I mean, there was. I guess there's a blur of people standing on the side, right? As we are running out, but not specifically this. This person, I don't even have an image of them in my head. So yeah, no, I didn't really notice anything. I was just focused on this guy. Give me my phone back was my whole thing. So yeah, I didn't really pay attention to anything. Which, at the end of the day, I feel bad about that too, because we're running like bats out of hell all around, who knows who could have gotten hurt, who could have got pushed into the tracks from us fighting, there's a whole lot of stuff that could have gone down because we're so focused. He's focused on stealing my phone. I'm focused on getting my phone back. Yeah, the bystanders, the bystanders were not thought of.
I think it's interesting that you actually consider it because I feel like it's very easy in that scenario to just be so hyper focused. Me, I need to get out of this. This is my situation. I don't know what happened to that guy. I mean, I hope he's fine, but
I'm sure he's okay. Yeah. Mess around, probably got a settlement from the city, from the MTA or something. I get nothing. He got $1 million.
Until you know what's gonna really happen? You're gonna turn this into a pilot or a screenplay or whatever. You're gonna be at the Golden Globes giving your acceptance speech, and he's gonna get up and excuse me, sir, where's my cut?
Right. That's my story. No, that's my story. You are a character, and something that happened to me.
He's gonna write the sequel from his point of view.
Right. I'm all down for that, man. I'm all down for that. I'll be in it. I don't write sketches and screenplays usually about my life. I write jokes about my life, but I don't really. Usually, when I'm thinking of stories, it's a fictional thing. I told you about something that I'm working. I'm not going to talk too much about that, but yeah, it's about other people that inspired me to kind of breathe life into stories. But my personal life, you know what I mean? Number one, it's too close to home. So there's two things to that. One, I don't want to embellish it because it really happened to me. And then number two, because it really happened to me, it's hard to think about what will people like about this? What will people appreciate about this? How will this be received? It's just something that happened to me. So I can tell it like this, but talking about telling it in other formats is just not really my thing.
No, I get that. Let me ask you, I guess, the wrap up to this story. Given all the changes that you added in, the way you revised it, what do you feel the long-term impacts would have been? Walk me through it. With your revision, how would your life have been different? I mean, obviously, you wouldn't have gone to jail, but... Yeah,
well, there's that. So cut to, instead of being in a hospital and getting surgery or going to jail, I would have been back at my crib with my girl, and I'd been telling her this wild story. Yo, this dude on the train just now tried to take my phone, baby. And she'd be like, what? And I'd be like, yeah. And then, I had to bust him up, And then, then I got my phone back, because, I hold mine down. And she's like, oh, baby, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine, man. You just see the other guy, I probably would have posted a Facebook post about it. Yeah, wow. Somebody tried to wild out, got wild out on, something.
World star.
World star, it'd have been ridiculous. But you know what? I would also, though, I wouldn't have grown.
True.
That experience, it did kind of freeze me up for a little while, but it was important to check how much am I drinking when I'm going out? How much, you know what I mean? How much am I paying attention to my surroundings when I'm going out? How much am I just relying on being from Harlem and not being a serious, cautious adult about the fact that this is the real world? I don't think any of that would have come if this didn't happen,
So, I mean, so it sounds like you've been able to work through it and find some of the silver linings from the situation, and you've just matured. So that's really good. Not everyone can walk away from a situation like this and turn it into a positive. So I commend you on that.
Oh, appreciate it. Yeah, a lot of people, dwell on the woe is me part of things, but I do think, and then don't get it twisted, man. I was depressed and all, sad for a while, like on so many different levels. But at the end of the day, I think it's just healthier to learn from every experience. Every traumatic experience, there's something that it's preparing you for, and I try to live like that.
So before I let you go, I'd like to end this podcast by asking a simple story. Could you tell me about a quick happy memory or happy story from your childhood? It's
such a random question that I'm thinking hard, but it's not that hard. Like my childhood wasn't horrifying or anything, so it's not that I'm like, oh no, I don't have any happy memories. But you know what? My grandfather got me one of those Jeeps. When I was little, I was like 6 or 7.
Right.
And he got me one of those, the ones that you can actually drive, the electric one.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was like the dopest thing. I drove that through the apartment. It's New York. So we live in an apartment. So I'm like, brr, and it makes all that, the old ones made all that noise. So I'm like,
you're beeping
all around. Yeah, beeping it, driving it around on the block, trying to be as fly with it as possible. That was probably one of the great memories of childhood. Yeah.
Well, that's a cool story, and I want to thank you once again for spending time with us, Neruda. I think that was a phenomenal story. I really enjoyed listening to it. I'm sure our listeners will too.
Well, thanks, man. Happy to use it to do something with it. Not let it just sit in my memory bank. The time I got beat up and robbed. I'm glad it can inspire others or entertain others. That's what I'm here for, man.
Any last words to our listeners before I let you go?
No, not really. Stay safe out there. Wear a mask. And do your best to be happy.
All right, everyone. Thank you, Neruda.
Peace.
The Revisionary Podcast.
If you enjoyed listening to Neruda, please feel free to follow him on Instagram at NerudaBear. Also, at the end of every episode, I like to highlight an organization or a charity. For this episode, it is the Harlem Arts Alliance, which has essentially created a community for artists in Harlem, and they're trying to advance and keep developing the arts culture in Harlem. So feel free to check them out and check out any of their events, and please show your support in any way possible. Also, please don't forget to subscribe to this podcast so that you don't miss any episode. And on that note, I'm your host, Juan Carlos. Thank you again for listening.
This is the